this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
At Lowe's, get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, members get free delivery, install, and more when you spend $2,500 on select major appliances. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 2/25 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Excludes Massachusetts, Maryland, Wisconsin, New Jersey, Florida. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Visit your nearby Lowe's on East 17th Avenue in Hutchinson.
When you stay in your home, what you love gets to stay too. From the gardens that grow wild to the grandkids that run wilder. From the Friday night baseball games to the Sunday morning brunches. Even the daily crosswords and weekly book clubs. There's room for it all with help from Home Instead, the largest in-home senior care network with over 30 years of trusted experience delivering the peace of mind you deserve. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. Lizzie Borden took an axe. She gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. My friends, that's a lie. That's inaccurate. I don't know who did the computation on that in order to create that, children's rhyme? Nursery rhyme? Though they did create it, it's inaccurate numerically and also from a forensic assessment perspective as well. As I sit here, I have the autopsy reports of both Abby and Andrew Borden, who back in 1892 were in fact killed with what appears to have been a hatchet. And their bodies were found in their home, one on the second floor, that would be Abby, and one in the parlor, reclined on a sofa, that would be Andrew. But since that date, back in 1892, 133 years ago, mystery still abounds. Coming to you from the beautiful campus of Jacksonville State University, I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Dave, I approached you about this case for a couple of reasons. One, I've told you, these deaths occurred in August of 1892, kind of peeling back the history a little bit and from a forensics perspective and going in and kind of taking a look at the autopsy reports of Andrew and Abby Borden. But also, I'm kind of doing this as a favor. Did you know that out of all of the cases that are out there that people have approached me about, relative to body bags, this is the number one case that they want me to go over. Yeah. And I know about as much regarding this case as the average person. Now, I know that there are huge Borden followers out there. I didn't know there was such a thing. Yeah. But apparently there are such a vast number. And I don't even know. I was looking through. I lost count after a while of all the books that have been written about this event that took place in Falls River, Massachusetts. Honestly, I didn't even know where this town was. Was kind of a little village. It's actually closer to the shore than it is some metropolitan area. I think that roughly it's about 40 to 50 miles due south of Boston. And a beautiful area. You hear people go on and on about it. And the house to this date, and I'm sure that many of our listeners here have visited this site. I, for one, have not. I've also never been to Salem, Massachusetts. I've never been to see Plymouth Rock. So I've got some traveling to do. I need to go do that. I'm fascinated also in Massachusetts about the executions in the Salem witch trial, because I'd like to visit those spots as well. There's some very interesting stories surrounding those cases. Maybe we can get to that, say, around Halloween. I don't know. Let's go ahead and mark that in our.
I think we need to plan a road trip, Joe. We need a body bags road trip. We need to take
body bags on the road.
No problem with that, man. Yeah, I will tell you, I thought that the nursery, you mentioned the child's nursery rhyme, whatever it was, the Lizzie Borden rhyme. Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, I know there was a murder that occurred, double homicide. And, Lizzie Borden took an axe. Okay, gotcha. That's actually maybe not even true, because Lizzie Borden was charged with the crime. And we'll get into this in just a minute. But when Joe brought this up, he said, did you know they had the skulls in the courtroom?
Yeah.
In 1892, they had skulls in the courtroom.
Oh, no.
Joe.
Yeah.
That does not even sound right to me.
No. That's kind of one of the things that made this that drew my interest. I'd seen the images of the skulls before. Okay, right. And they're quite striking from an evidentiary standpoint. And no, these are not models.
These are the actual skulls. They brought in Andrew and Abby's domes without skin. Here you go. How did they even get them down into that form? Did they boil them? And I'm not trying to be gross, but
no. They probably did. And kind of let me tell you what happens. Yeah. Now, I will go ahead and make a confession. I think I've said it before, but for those that are new and haven't heard me say this before, I have, in fact, decapitated bodies before. You do it in the morgue. It does happen. And there are a number of reasons why you do it. First off, if you have severely decomposed bodies, you go in and you can actually decapitate the body in order to work with the jaws. That has happened. I've decapitated remains and our heads that were still partially attached, and you take them to a forensic anthropologist. I got actually pulled over in my coroner's car one time driving at a high speed. I ever told you the story?
Yes.
Yeah.
It grosses me out to this day. I was hoping you weren't going to say this, but you need to tell it now, Joe.
I got to tell it. So
Stop the story and go.
We had a victim that came in, and we were doing the autopsy, and the forensic pathologist at the time said, I was very young, and young and dumb as you are, and or as I was, and I still got a little of that dumbness that goes along with me to this day. But the doctor, who I was deathly afraid of, if you're 23 years old and there's a doctor talking to you and here's your boss, it's like coming from the burning bush. You're going to do it, And he said, listen, he says, you got to get dry ice. We're going to take this guy's head off. You're going to do it. I took it off in between the C1 and the C2 vertebra, and we're going to place it in dry ice inside of a styrofoam cooler, and with all speed, you're going to drive to Baton Rouge to the Faces lab at the anthropology anthropology lab there, Faces Lab, at LSU. And I took him. I took it at his word. And here I am, and I'm speeding down I-10 westbound out of New Orleans, and I'm headed toward Baton Rouge. I crossed what's called the Bond Carry Spillway, which is this elevated portion of I-10 that goes over the most further portion of Lake Pontchartrain. It's not the causeway, not the Long Bridge. It's at the far west end. It separates what's called Lake Pontchartrain. There's another lake there called Lake Maurepas. And it goes on forever. And look, state troopers, as everybody knows, they set up in strategic locations to nail you, when you're going at high speed, particularly on elevated bridges where they can't set up radar. And man, I had my foot in it, had my little blue light going on my dashboard. Back then you could plug it in a cigarette lighter. And when I hit the end of that bridge and came down onto terra firma, there he was. He was sitting there, and my Lord, even though I had a blue light going, he pulled in right behind me, and he came stomping out of that car. And if you've ever seen a Louisiana state trooper, they've got the most magnificent uniforms. They're blue with gold piping. They got the Smokey the Bear hat, and their badge is shaped like the state of Louisiana. And they all wear patent leather shoes. And I swear some of them have clicks on the heels because you can hear them walking towards you. It sounds like a drill sergeant. Wow. And he came up, and he was, what in the hell are you doing? Just going on and on. And I said, I pulled out my badge, and he said something like, "You better have a good reason." And I pointed to the styrofoam cooler, and I opened the lid, and he looked in. He said, "I'll give you an escort." And off we go. He literally drove me on. I followed him onto the campus of LSU with a head in my front seat, and walked into the building. My dear friend was the forensic anthropologist there, Mary Manhunt. I recommend anybody, by the way, that is not familiar with Mary's work. She's one of the first people to ever digitize a human skull, and she's since retired, but she's written a pretty cool series of books called The Bone Lady, and she is the real deal. I've sweated in the sun with her. We've excavated graves together or burials, and she's a real gem. So if you get a chance, check her out. But yeah, that's my story of heads and what we can do with them. And she wound up creating a cast of the skull. And plus doing a very thorough examination. Can I ask
you something, though?
Yeah,
you
sure.
said something almost as a throwaway line. You said that you had to take it to the Faces Lab at LSU. Mm-hmm. What is the Faces Lab?
Yeah, the Faces Lab, literally, it is, I can't remember the acronym. It's like forensic anthropological, it's like, okay. It has to do, they were the first anthropological lab that really entered onto the stage doing these clay modelings. And this is back in the 80s, right, with skulls. And they eventually wound up doing digital reconstructions. They were the first people to kind of step off into this region. And now it's kind of rote, you see it all the time, but they were on the cutting edge back then, and a fantastic facility, by the way, and just really enjoyed my time working with them. But yeah, it is called the Faces Lab. Look it up for yourself at LSU, and really good people there, and they've had some really bright individuals that have come through that program. You hear a lot about the Body Farm, and as well you should, because they're quite notable. But the Faces Lab has produced quite a number of great practitioners out there as well. And they still do archaeological research as well. And as a matter of fact, my friend Mary, now dig this, she was the lead on-site forensic anthropologist for the recovery of the CSS Hundley, which was in, I think, Charleston Harbor. It was the first submarine that was used during the Civil War, and there were, I think, close to 20 guys that went down in this thing, and she was part of the body recovery of that. These bodies have been encapsulated in this metal tube, buried down in the mud there in Charleston Harbor, and they brought it back to life, and she did the excavation on that. So, and there was a big documentary created about that. But that's the kind of work that she's done over the years. So, everybody, and I'm sure you can include this in your profession as well, Dave, we all, stand on the shoulders of giants, those individuals that took time to teach us, when we were young and they didn't have to. And I know a lot that we do it's self-learning, through failure and repeat and all that stuff. But there are those people that really gave us insight. And the trick is, when you're young, are you bright enough to listen to advice? And I had a couple of flashes of moments where I showed some level of intelligence, where I actually held on to things. And there's stuff that Mary said way back then that I still teach in class to this day. Wow. And I've been at this for actually my career. I was just thinking, I was telling a group that we were speaking to today, my career, I'm in, combined with practice in the field and academia, I'm in my 41st year now. So it's been an ongoing process, to say the least. You just keep on grinding. You just keep on grinding, man. And me, I don't ever stop. So we'll see how long the train goes. But yeah. Okay. Well, but I digress. I'm glad you let me tell that story, because it's gruesome, but it also makes me reflective and think about, those times that I spent in the morgue and everything that I learned from that. First off, I don't speed on the Bon Carey Spillway anymore, and because I don't know if I'd have as much luck now. My wife gets on to me because I go so slow now. I drive like a pawpaw, because I'm in no rush to get anywhere anymore. Yeah. I don't I don't have to get anywhere fast. Wow. But with Andrew and Abby Borden skulls, this is one of the things that really kind of attracted me, to the idea of covering this, because this is it's such an oddity. It's such an oddity that these skulls would have been utilized in the midst of this horrific case that occurred up there, again, 133 years ago. The trial was 132 years ago. That they would be used as tools of demonstration, that they would be displayed, not just for the gallery, not just for the judge, and not just for the jury, but also for Lizzie herself, who, upon seeing them, fainted in court.
So, do you want to start shopping for your next car but don't know where to begin? Start at CarMax, where you can shop your way from start to finish. Whether you're shopping for something practical, adventurous, or luxurious, CarMax puts you in the driver's seat. And if you want to shop cars that fit your budget, CarMax has your back all the way. Simply grab your phone and get pre-qualified from your couch, the dog park, or even on a coffee break. It's quick, easy, and has zero impact on your credit score. Want to explore your options? CarMax has plenty of options. In fact, with over 45,000 cars to choose from, CarMax has rides for almost every budget, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. From browsing online to checking out cars on the lot, you can shop your way at CarMax. Want to get started on the search for your next car? Start at CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
When you stay in your home, what you love gets to stay too. From the gardens that grow wild to the grandkids that run wilder. From the Friday night baseball games to the Sunday morning brunches. Even the daily crosswords. and weekly book clubs. There's room for it all with help from HomInstead, the largest in-home senior care network with over 30 years of trusted experience delivering the peace of mind you deserve. Visit HomInstead online for a better what's next.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
The skulls therein rest the evidence. It rests the evidence of the trauma that was visited upon these folks. And, you know, a couple in their 60s, Andrew Borden was wealthy, well known to be wealthy, and he was somewhat of a tightwad, wasn't he, Dave?
It's funny that he was well known to be wealthy. He owned a lot of property, owned a number of factories, owned a number of rental properties. He was president of the Union Savings Bank and was known, and they lived in Fall River, Mass. Now, it's interesting that Fall River was an upscale neighborhood. However, the more wealthy families in town had moved further away from the factories. And Andrew Borden said, "Now this is good enough." But a little side to give you an idea of the tightwad that he was. At that point in time in 1890s, most wealthy families had indoor plumbing. It was common for the bigger homes in the nicer neighborhoods to have plumbing, indoor plumbing. They didn't have it. Andrew just couldn't be bothered with that. That was an expense he just didn't want. So money actually became a real issue within the family dynamic between Lizzie and her older sister. And, you know, I mentioned this to you earlier in the nursery rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. It wasn't her mother.
Yeah.
It's her stepmother. Lizzie's mom died 3 years after she was born. Her mother, Sarah, died in 1863. And Andrew Borden he married Abby 3 years later. And when Lizzie was about 6 years old and her older sister was 15. And so there's that dynamic there of the stepmother and the father and a bit of jealousy between the girls and the stepmom. Lizzie apparently never called Abby anything other than Mrs. Borden.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah. And, you know,
super bizarre. Yeah.
It is, because we found that out they had a maid. She was from Ireland, and she was about 25 years old and had been with the family for a number of years. The reason she's important is because she's a witness to what was taking place in the home before, during, and after. But she's the one that told us about that Lizzie called Abby Mrs. Borden. Lizzie's older sister, Emma, and Lizzie never ate with the Bordens. They did not eat dinner together. They didn't eat meals together. And that was a big part of life in the 1890s.
Yeah.
When you lived under the same roof, you know, they didn't have radio and TV and things like that. They ate, and they would gather together around the table and they would eat. Not in the Borden household. The girls would not eat at the same table with Abby.
These were women that, first off, they were outside the societal norms at this point, because they were 30 plus, they were unmarried, and they were living at home with their father.
Right.
And they were like completely dependent upon him and his wealth in order to get by, correct?
And they were both, and you're dead on. And I go ahead and I'll mention this now because I really want to get into the forensics of this show.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea here, friends, Lizzie and Emma Borden, they were unmarried, and they were engaged around the house. They were not looking for a way out. They both had chores. They're adult women, and they have chores. Lizzie is 32. Emma is 41. Okay. They're not young women, and yet they still had daily chores. And that actually comes into play here. In the months leading up to the murders, Emma and Lizzie actually left for an extended period of time. Andrew Borden decided to kill a bunch of pigeons that were out in the backyard. He killed them with an axe, and he did it in May of 1892. The reason he killed the pigeons is because they were drawing the attention of young boys who were coming by to shoot them, to hunt them, the pigeons, trying to shoot them, I guess. And so rather than have these kids around their yard shooting whatever guns they had or whatever weapons they used in the 1890s as children, he killed the pigeons. Well, Lizzie had just spent time building hutches for them, if that's what you call it.
A coop.
A coop. A coop for she had built a coop to house these pigeons, to take care of them. So she gets the things built, and Andrew goes out and kills all of them. Well, prior to that happening, Emma and Lizzie had been arguing with their father because he kept giving away property to Abby's family, their stepmother's family. Now, it isn't like Lizzie and Emma always thought Abby was a gold digger. But, Joe, they were married for a long time. They've been married 29 years at this point, okay? Abby was there for, again, 3 decades. And so Andrew's 70 years old, and he's giving away property to her family. And Lizzie and Emma got mad. And they actually fought over a house and demanded, since Dad gave Abby's sister this house, a rental property, the girls, Lizzie and Emma, demanded a house. Demanded Andrew give them their old home place, the place they lived with their mother. Because when Andrew remarried, Abby wouldn't live in that house. So he built a different house, bought a different house. And that other house became a rental. So Andrew sold that original home to Lizzie and Emma in 1892. He sold it to them for $1. After the pigeon thing happened, Emma and Lizzie left. They went to New Bedford, and they stayed gone for weeks because of what had happened with the pigeons and everything else. And when they returned the week of the murders, Lizzie didn't go to the house. Emma did. Lizzie stayed in a boarding house for 4 days. She couldn't bring herself to go to that house. She was so mad about those pigeons. So that's kind of the setup. By the way, they ended up reselling the house back to Andrew. The house they bought for $1. They sold it back to him for $5,000. And in 1892 dollars, today it would be about $175,000. So Andrew gave them $175,000 basically in today's money. That was what was going on in this family dynamic at the time of these murders. Okay, it was not a happy household, and the girls had just come back. So, well, girls, the women had just come back.
The women, yeah, absolutely. You think about what would be the motivation, because Dave, this is not some kind of like, this is not a passive act. This isn't like a one-off, like punch in the nose. Right. It's not a single gunshot wound. Now, we were kind of making light of the nursery rhyme, which it kind of is a nursery rhyme, or at least, kids are going to skip rope to it, maybe. But this is not a passive act. These injuries that both of these individuals sustained were so gruesome that when you think about the force of, and this is not, in the nursery rhyme, they use the word axe. It seems as though that this is more akin to a hatchet, which if you've never seen a hatchet is like a smaller version of an axe. And many times with hatchets, you can actually flip them over, and they have a blunt side to them that you can use to hammer with. And also, if you look on the underside of the blade of a hatchet, it's got a little curved out area there that you can use as a nail puller. Because, with a claw hammer, we use the claw to pull nails with, right? Well, that feature exists on many hatchets where you
I didn't know that's what that was for.
Yeah, you can slide it under there and pull out nails with it. Yeah, so
I didn't even know. I've got one, Joe. I didn't know that's what it was for.
Yeah, it's a I guess I don't want to say multi-tool, but it has multiple utility And people have carried hatchets forever. You even think about Native Americans carrying tomahawks. Now, I don't know the utility of a tomahawk, but, frontiersmen carried hatchets. There's a lot to be said for the portability of it, because you can take down small trees with it. You could build something, if you wanted to create, some kind of shelter, that sort of thing. And it's not as cumbersome as an axe, and it takes a bit more work to utilize a hatchet than it does an axe. But so these insults that both these individuals sustained are rather gruesome, because you have the weight. Just think about this now. It's not just the blade that's doing the damage here. If you think about the way a hatchet is shaped, it's got that kind of robust, blunted back to it, again, like a hammerhead. So as you're driving this thing through the air and you're targeting, say, someone's face, like in the case of Andrew Borden, you have the added mass of the backside of that hatchet driving downward, and it's transferring that energy into this space. So not only, and this is obvious, when you take a look at these skulls, this is obvious that these are not just, and even the pathologist or the doctor makes note of this, these are not just incised injuries, which he calls them incised injuries. You've also got crushing injuries too. So the devastating blows that both these individuals sustained, Andrew's are primarily anterior, which means to his face. As a matter of fact, the facial bones, it's his, I think the left side, his facial bones, like if you look at like his eye sockets, for instance, particularly the lower left, is almost completely decimated. The structures within his cheeks are crushed as well. So when I've given this some thought, Dave, that can you imagine when you're the prosecutor, the pathologist in this particular case, or the doctor that's doing the autopsies? There were two doctors that were both assisting. I can get into that because the way their bodies are treated afterwards is kind of interesting as well. You're concluding this thing, and there's a representative from the DA's office there too, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if the DA, in consultation with the doctor, said, hey, you know what? These are really gruesome. These injuries are so profound. I need a demonstrative in court. Is it possible to decapitate these bodies and display them in court? And I'm sure the doctor said, yeah, sure. Remember this, even though this is, we think of Massachusetts as being very sophisticated and that sort of thing, old money and all that. They're still rural people. They know what it means to render down a hog. And, part of rendering down a hog is boiling of a hog. And, they actually say that humans are not too dissimilar in that sense. As a matter of fact, medical students, they used to use hog's feet in order to practice suturing. So there's, utility in this sort of thing. So, yeah, I think probably what happened is they decapitated these bodies and began to render them down. Now, it would be, I guess you would say, well, the shortest route would be just to take instruments and kind of carve the flesh off of them. Well, no, it wouldn't be, and this is why. Even modern anthropologists do this, because modern anthropologists actually render down bodies. We had two boilers at the ME's office in Atlanta in the anthropology lab, where you could take limbs and put them in there and render them down. One of the things you avoid from an evidentiary standpoint when you begin to render down bone and you don't use sharp instruments is that sharp instrument is not coming in contact with the bone. So if you think about a bone from a culinary perspective, if you think about putting, say, a bone-in roast in a crock pot, the roast becomes very tender, and what happens to it? If there's a bone there, it falls away from the bone, and you're left with the bone, and the tissue is sitting there. The principle is the same thing. So if you render down this element, this anatomical element, the tissue literally falls away, and you can carefully pick up that bone. Now, the problem is that
there's only one. Come on.
No, well, let's just think about Andrew. Okay, his facial bones, and it's kind of, if you touch your left eye at the bottom of the orbit, okay, your eye socket, and you kind of go back, this thing is like really fragmented. So when you're rendering down something like this and you're trying to assess it for evidentiary value, maybe you're looking at tool marks and this sort of things, which is one of the things they would have been doing, not in the same way we do today, but in their own way. It would be real easy to lose these little bits and pieces, because it's kind of like if you had a jigsaw puzzle that's covered in tissue and you want to strip away the tissue so that you can put together the jigsaw puzzle. You have to reassemble it. And look, let's face it, they wanted a demonstrative for this, Dave, because they were going to take this. They're taking this into court so that the people of the jury and the court, everybody present there, could actually observe what had happened to these people. And first off, it's very prejudicial, but what a powerful tool to have at your disposal if you're the prosecutor, because now we can't even show. You have to go through pretrial now, Dave, with bloody photographs. We've talked about this before. They go in pretrial. Let me just frame this out in modern terms. They go in pretrial, and like all of the photographs that are going to be shown at trial, people don't realize this. In pretrial motions, both sides agree on what photos are acceptable and not acceptable, because they have inflammatory content in them. The defense will say they're prejudicial because they're so gory and over the top. Dude, we're not talking about photographs here. We're talking about the skulls of two individuals, which people that are sitting on this jury had conversations with in life. Now, they know these people. This is not some stranger that rolls into town and is butchered with a sharp instrument. These individuals are citizens, and high-profile citizens. So I understand the scientific value in this, and you're trying to demonstrate the mechanics of this instrument that was used, how extensive it is, but it's highly prejudicial. Can you imagine if they tried to do this today?
Oh, my goodness.
They render down a couple of skulls and bring them into the courtroom and say, yeah, these are our victims here. These are our victims. You think that photos are over the top. My Lord, you're actually bringing in anatomical elements of the victims. People would be screaming from the rooftops nowadays if something like this was done, but it was done. And in spite of those being brought in and demonstrated before the court, they still found Lizzie Borden not guilty.
So, do you want to start shopping for your next car but don't know where to begin? Start at CarMax, where you can shop your way from start to finish. Whether you're shopping for something practical, adventurous, or luxurious, CarMax puts you in the driver's seat. And if you want to shop cars that fit your budget, CarMax has your back all the way. Simply grab your phone and get pre-qualified from your couch, the dog park, or even on a coffee break. It's quick, easy, and has zero impact on your credit score. Want to explore your options? CarMax has plenty of options. In fact, with over 45,000 cars to choose from, CarMax has rides for almost every budget, including more than 25,000 cars priced under $25,000. From browsing online to checking out cars on the lot, you can shop your way at CarMax. Want to get started on the search for your next car? Start at CarMax.com for details and get pre-qualified today. Want to drive? CarMax.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
When you stay in your home, what you love gets to stay too. From the gardens that grow wild to the grandkids that run wilder. From the Friday night baseball games to the Sunday morning brunches. Even the daily crosswords and weekly book clubs. There's room for it all with help from Home Instead, the largest in-home senior care network with over 30 years of trusted experience delivering the peace of mind you deserve. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Dave had mentioned earlier that Mr. Borden didn't have indoor plumbing. Now, back then, I think modern refrigeration would have been viewed as almost magical. Certainly, I think that ice boxes, and my grandmother still referred to her refrigerator as an ice box, were a thing. And, that's where the iceman would come by and deliver the blocks of ice that would go into a special area in your ice box, and you could store meats and that sort of thing. But to think that you would have a walk-in refrigerator like we do now in morgues is kind of, it would have been something that would have been unheard of at this point in time. So in Fall River, they had a location. Now dig this from, if you like history, this is kind of fascinating. They had an area in their local cemetery, and the cemetery is actually called Oak Grove Cemetery, still there today. And there's like a crypt. It's built into the ground, and it's a walk-in kind of crypt that, I don't know if the coroner or whoever it was had access to it. Had keys, the city fathers that kept control over this sort of thing. And the reason they had a crypt like this out there was not for burial. It was for storage of bodies. Here's why. I was fascinated by this. During the wintertime up there in Massachusetts, the ground was so hard that if someone died, you couldn't dig a hole to stick them in. So what they would do, if people died in the winter months, they would take these bodies and they would store them in this crypt. And after the thaw began, they'd send out a team of people and they would begin to dig graves, and they could, send people to their eternal rest. And it was in this such facility that Andrew and Abby were kept. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
Sometimes all we want is more of the same, like another round of golf played from a channel with 24/7 coverage, another look at the garden, and the deer as they pick their way through it, another Taco Tuesday, followed by a whatever's in the fridge Wednesday. And to get more of the same, all we need is a little help. With adaptable care plans from qualified, compassionate caregivers matched to your family's needs, Home Instead can help you and your passions stay home, no matter what's on your horizon. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
This is Teddy Mellencamp from Two Teas in a Pod with Teddy Mellencamp and Tamara Judge. There's a new season of 90 Day The Single Life, and it's hotter than ever.
If you've never seen 90 Day before, this is the one that will get you hooked. Their marriages crumbled. Now, 8 singles are taking the lead and stepping back out to the scariest place of all, the dating world.
There will be exciting first dates, steamy hookups, big letdowns, and potential love waiting in the most unexpected places.
Don't miss a new season of 90 Day The Single Life, Monday at 8 on TLC.
When life feels loud, your home can feel lighter. For a limited time, get a free Pura Plus diffuser with your first Scent subscription. 2 cents for 12 months. Risk-free for 30 days. Feel good at home again. Visit Pura.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.